everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast. I am Ed from BourbonObsessed.com, also known on Instagram as Bourbon_Obsessed. Today, my wife Karen and I are on location at the J. Mattingly Distillery in Frankfort, Kentucky. The distillery is very conveniently located across the road from Buffalo Trace Distillery, so the next time you're in the area, it's very easy to stop by and check them out. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to do the J. Mattingly Bourbon Blending Experience, where I had the opportunity to work with TT and blend my own bourbon. Now we are sitting down with Harry Richart, who is the president of the J. Mattingly 1845 Distillery, and we're going to talk all about the company background, their bourbon, and what they are doing now and where they are going. As I have edited this podcast, I noticed one thing that might need some clarification. There'll be a segment where we talk about J. Mattingly's Double Staving process. What this process is that they finish each whiskey by putting half-size staves into the barrels of the mature whiskey to provide specific finishing characteristics. We'll learn more about it during the podcast. All right, everybody. Well, we're here today with Harry Richart at J. Mattingly Distillery here in Frankfort, Kentucky. Harry, how you doing?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you for taking the time and speaking with us today.
No, thanks for talking to us. And my wife is here too, Karen. Say hello to everybody.
Yes, hello everybody, and Harry, again, thank you for having us out.
Of course, it's our pleasure.
Alrighty, so do you want to just start by telling us a little bit about yourself? How long have you been here at J. Mattingly?
Sure. I started at J. Mattingly early in the spring in 2021. So it's been just over 4 years since I started. Been in the industry since about 2015 when I started as a brand ambassador at Brown-Forman working with Woodford Reserve. And then I had a short stint actually selling this product, among other products, but selling J. Mattingly at wholesale for Kentucky Eagle out of Lexington, and that's how I got to know Jeff and Cameron, and they were gracious enough to bring me on.
Huh, nice. Okay, so you were already familiar with the brand then before you started.
I was indeed.
That's how you became president so quickly.
a bit of experience selling bottles of whiskey, you know.
Very cool. So I know you weren't here at the very beginning, but I guess for our listeners that might not be familiar with the brand, could you just give us a quick summary of how it all started? Sure.
So, I mean, really, it starts back well over 100 years ago. So, John Graves Mattingly took out the second license distillery in the state of Kentucky in 1845. So, J. Mattingly 1845 is a callback on that. There's a ton of whiskey-making heritage in the company. For instance, individuals like Benjamin Franklin Mattingly were in charge in the 1870s, and they were actually selling commodity spirit in barrels to companies like Brown-Forman, who in 1870 would go on and make, of course, the first bottle of bourbon being Old Forester, which would have been actually Mattingly juice all the way back 150 years ago.
So that was one of the three distilleries that they used?
It was indeed.
Huh.
It was indeed. Now, fast forward, 2010, Jeff worked in management and production at Toyota, took his retirement, started the company out of his garage in 2010. It wasn't until 2014 that the first product, Bourbon 30, was offered, but did that and then released J. Mattingly a couple years later, I believe in 2016. Really at the start, had been in a couple different places, Glens Creek, and also it would have been Three Boys Farm at the time, which now of course is Whiskey Thief. Additionally, he ended up getting his own spot finally, I believe in 2017 in Georgetown, just right next to Royal Springs Park, which actually has got its own distilling history as well. I believe it's claimed at least that Elijah Craig used it as an early water source, I believe, in the late 18th century. Yeah, so kind of getting back to it, we operated out of Georgetown from 2017 to 2023 when we made the move here. Actually, the building was purchased at the very end of 2021, and then it took about a year and a half to retrofit what was an auto body shop into a distillery. Actually, this building was built in the 60s, originally as a Chrysler dealership, I believe, here in Frankfort. It was a state office building for a couple of decades, then in a car shop, and when we bought that, then we retrofitted it into a DSP. So
wow, it's actually, when you drive up, honestly, from the street side, I didn't know what to expect. When we opened the door, it's really quite impressive. You guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah, you did a great job.
It's beautiful up front.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it to the point where it got to. So, yeah.
Just coincidence that it's across the street from Buffalo Trace?
Yes and no. Obviously, when we, our neighbors were something we were looking at, and we actually, at the time when we were looking for properties, we looked in Shelby County, we looked in Anderson County, even a few things in the Lexington area, and Fayette County. We did want to make sure that we were in an area where there would be bourbon tourism.
Traffic. Yeah.
So it wasn't.
I think you found it.
Correct, but it wasn't necessarily Buffalo Trace at the outset. But we did want to be in a neighborhood where we would, particularly for tour companies and whatnot, would make sense as a stop in an itinerary.
Yeah.
So yes and no.
Smart move.
But it's obviously, I assumed, worked out very well.
It has worked out quite well. That's correct.
How many people do you think, because obviously Buffalo Trace has a huge drawing, how many people do you think come here because that's where they're headed?
Interestingly enough, we get a mix, and it kind of depends on the day and the time of day. We, of course, get a pop a lot of mornings after they do their release across the street. But actually, one of the things that we've been pleasantly surprised to find is that we do have a lot of original traffic. Now, there's a massive overlap, obviously, in the Venn diagram. I mean, if you're interested in coming here and doing this, you're probably also interested in going and taking a look around at Buffalo Trace. But we have found that we do get a good portion of our traffic is original to us. And it's been a pleasant surprise.
Do you think the traffic that's original to you is more people that are regional? Because I think when people travel from out of state and they're planning their day and around their hotel, they're always going to pick places that are close to each other so they can, I try to talk people out of this all the time because they always have like a crazy number of distilleries that they're going to visit.
Right.
Ignore the fact they need to eat, drink some water, drive between them.
It's a massively interesting question. We do find Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Michigan, the Chicago area does provide a massive portion of who comes here and visits. So I do believe that that's the case. We do have, with the exception of Chicago, a wholesale presence in all those areas. And we do find that the people that are, that the original traffic that comes here, there is a certain clientele typically that it attracts, and it's usually folks who are more aficionados to the category. For a variety of reasons, the blending and the single barrel experience is something that is not obviously wholly unique to us, but we're one of just a handful of places that do things like this, and it is, and we've got obviously our own spin on it as well. But we do find that folks coming regionally that are massively into the category, that want a unique experience, that aren't afraid to spend a couple hours rolling their sleeves up, getting their hands dirty, participating, and all that. And then, of course, secondarily, I mean, most of what we have on offer here is cask strength whiskey, so obviously that's sort of catnip to that same group of individuals as well, I think.
Yeah, I guess it is sort of a bit of a different crowd than going to be standing in line at Buffalo Trace in the morning.
But some overlap, though,
Well, I think people like well, I encourage people who come here from out of state to see more than just, one type of distillery, where there's much more to offer than, I love our big distilleries, and I think everybody does.
Same.
I love our small distilleries, and I love the unique things that they bring to them, and I always encourage people to, not just get caught up in only seeing the big, the big name places, to learn about something new and different.
To me, there's a neat analogy. My folks and I, about 10 years ago, went out to wine country, and, a couple of my mom's friends had been out a bunch of times. We asked, what do you recommend? And they were like, well, basically, pick a large producer, pick a micro producer.
Yeah.
And a list of, each of those that you'd like to see, and then do both. And I do think that really it's quite similar around here, where I really would encourage folks to go and see, Fortune 500 company setups, and then more of a ma and pa type feel as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'll let my wife talk. This is the longest she's ever been quiet, but I'll let her talk shortly. So could you just talk a little bit about the transition between the Bourbon 30 brand to the Mattingly brand? You said the Mattingly started in 2016, and I know that was meant to be the more barrel-proof, sort of higher-end line. And then Bourbon 30, at least for a while, appeared as the 90 proof, red and blue labels were they?
They were originally, yeah. Now it's more of like a black and a blue. So the blue is the 90 proof, and the black is the 100 proof. Yes, sir.
So that line still exists in harmony?
Absolutely, yeah. Admittedly, what we found, and I think this, for Jeff and Cameron and myself, frankly, at the time, was a little bit unexpected, which is essentially that, what we thought was, kind of more of a, the Bourbon 30 sits in more of a premium price category. So that $40, $50, $60 range, which we thought would be, kind of the at least would get the majority of the sales. But what we found actually is that the majority of the sales were for J. Mattingly 1845 with older stuff, all hand done and at a luxury price point. So basically what we found is that, you gotta kind of follow the sales, right? So I'd say about a little over 8 out of 10 bottles that we were selling, averaged out throughout the year, ended up being J. Mattingly, and so that was the transition. I will note to you, with certain movements and things like that, in the industry and what have you, particularly independent liquor stores are actually reaching out to do barrel picks for Bourbon 30 and stuff like that, so they can offer $40 and $50 products to their customers as well. But in terms of overall sales and what we see people interested in when they come here, J. Mattingly is what carries the day for us on site.
Well, it's nice. That worked out.
It did.
Very nicely.
It did.
Well, that kind of answers my question. I was looking over the website, and I was curious as why the company wasn't just named Mattingly in the first place, given the history of the family, and why did they decide to go with Bourbon 30 over Mattingly?
The funny thing is that there's a family story behind the Bourbon 30 name as well. So, and that one actually is a little bit more, obviously that one's more personal to Jeff and his family growing up in Breckenridge County in the 70s. So they worked on a massive farm, a family farm in Breckenridge County, in Breckenridge County in Mattingly, Kentucky, and his dad was an early times drinker, and the work truck could go around family farm during the day, and he kept a bottle of it basically underneath the seat, and when he would be otherwise occupied, Jeff and his brothers would look at each other and say it's Bourbon 30, and then they'd go and steal a little nip of their dad's early times. So
was that the blended whiskey early times or the good early times?
I think it was, it would have been mid-70s, so I tend to think it was probably, and I think it was, maybe plastic handle of it, and, the reason they chose that is because it had the family connection, and it was super personal to Jeff and his dad and his brothers.
Awesome. Very cool. Was he aware when he started, though, the history of the Mattingly?
I think he was loosely aware, but he did not know the details that we know now.
Yeah.
I know Tony Mattingly, one of his cousins, is kind of the unofficial historian for the Mattingly family, and does it as it's a well-involved hobby, I would say.
Yeah.
And, I think just slowly kind of digging in and realizing all the heritage that was there, and that, I think I said, I think he was loosely aware, but, didn't know to the extent that really they had cemented themselves as kind of, one of the founding families of Kentucky bourbon making.
Well, yeah, and they've been involved in many distilleries. Their names pop up all the time.
We learned the name for the first time, really, and Barton doesn't give tours anymore, but at the 1792 tour, when a Mattingly had actually owned, that old distillery. So we were like, interesting, Mattingly and more.
Absolutely, that's the same. And I know I believe Heaven Hill has owned the Mattingly and Moore name for over 100 years, something like that. So, and I do believe that label is actively sold, I think, overseas, but not here in the States.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it.
No, I've not seen it here, but
because Sazerac still owns the Thomas Moore.
Thomas Moore, yeah.
Correct.
So the Bourbon 30s, those were mostly when they first. I mean, obviously we all know the internet and Facebook parts of all of that. So everything was single barrels for the most part when that brand first started out, right?
Correct.
So when did the double staving become a part of things?
Interestingly enough, and it's funny, he I think it really happened over the course of years and slowly just kind of messing around with stuff. And I know for a fact that particularly between around 2016, 2018, 2019, relatively small. I think to an extent it was Jeff, a couple other folks working with him. And he had time to innovate and to try different things out. And the funny thing is I don't really think that you hear a whole lot about maybe the things that didn't work, right? But this is definitely something that he tried that yielded fantastic results. And obviously he had the time to look at it and to try it out and to test it, and saw that there really was a value-added proposition with it. And, it's kind of been led to its logical conclusion because, we were, at the outset, for instance, they were treating the staves pretty much one way. And now, we've got a variety of different heat treats. And we've got a massive spreadsheet where we log what we do. And, what were the flavors before it was staved? What does it taste like at 6 months, 12 months, and so on. So to an extent, it's almost come about organically where, I think the first thing is that he was pretty courageous to try something that I imagine if he'd gotten the opinion of people who had been working for decades in the industry, they probably would have laughed at him. So the courage to try something new, and then the wherewithal to see what worked, and then to let it organically develop into something that has sort of become the calling card of the company. So
it's literally become the calling card. You put it.
So right, and I think it's the confluence of things. There's a certain amount of providence with this stuff. So it's a little luck, it's a little intuition, it's a little bit of getting out of the way and allowing the talented people that work for you to maybe take a risk, maybe try something new. And, I think all those things kind of came together and developed it into what it is.
So the staves that you guys use are from your barrels, and you treat them yourself?
We do new oak and used oak, actually. So the used is from ours. Okay. We do have a producer who sells us, I believe, 24-month season white oak staves as well that are unused.
Okay.
but we do all the heat treat, we do all the cutting, all the sanding.
Right here.
Everything
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
We have a wood shop annex that's connected to the building, and there's like a homemade oven that we use in there to toast staves.
Nice.
Obviously, we've got gas flames so we can char them. There's a sander. There's
a big pizza oven back there.
It's
done.
all that stuff is right here under this roof. So,
No, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think that was a very good innovation, especially for the way bourbon has gone, because I think, the model of just sourcing, putting it in a barrel is an extremely tough one to be successful in. Today, when you have your own niche and you do something unique, then you're actually creating and adding to the pre-existing product. That's the way you can be successful as a non-distilling producer.
absolutely, and we do actually do some distilling on site. Not a whole lot, but we do about 1,000 gallons a year out of a small still in the back. We dabble around with that. Actually, they've been making a lot of weeded bourbon recently.
How old is that bourbon then, and what will that be going into?
That's a good question. So all those barrels are, because they're basically, the oldest ones are essentially the same age as when we moved into the building. So I believe our oldest in-house distillate is between 1.5 and 2 years old. So it's got some time. I'd anticipate that they'll probably let it get to, we'll want it to get to 5 to 6 years old, and then probably we'll turn it into it'll be barrels available for J. Mattingly.
Awesome.
We might, hypothetically, we could do a weeded bourbon 30 as well, but I think that since there's not that many of them, and we're pretty proud of them, we'll hold it back for the J. Mattingly, which of course means we've probably got another 4 or 5 years left to go before it's ready for that type of reveal.
So I guess the big question is then, since that would now be your own and it would be nice and mature, is that going to get double staved, or would you want to release it as is?
We would double stave it. We would certainly double stave it.
So pretty much everything with the J. Mattingly
Everything
name will be
everything. Yeah, absolutely. To an extent, obviously we can do light staving or heavy depending on what the product is. So,
Right.
but there will definitely be some staves in it.
So while you're waiting for that, can you tell us a bit about your experiences that you guys have here for visitors?
Sure.
That check us out, that check you out.
Absolutely. So, 3 major experiences that we offer. The first is the standard $20 gift shop tasting. Basically, that's trying what's available in the gift shop, getting a little tour at the end to run through the facility. Now, it's a fairly small facility, at least compared to our neighbors across the street and whatnot. But, just basically a regular tour like that with a tasting. We also do a single barrel experience where we'll let you taste through some single barrels, walk with a bottle of that on the way out, which has become increasingly popular. And then also we've got the J. Mattingly experience, which you did today, which we've become best known for, where we'll allow you to go in, try a number of barrels, build your own blend, and then customize the bottle as well. So. In any case, those are kind of the three main offerings that we've got on site right here.
Whose idea was it? Because that is a unique experience. So, whose idea was it to do the blending? Because really isn't
Jeff. This is actually what drew me to the company 4.5 years ago. What he did, and he basically looked at how the barrel pick market worked, which was at the time pretty much prohibited to people who had $10,000 to spend and owned a liquor license. And really what he wanted to do, and these are my words, not necessarily his, but was to democratize the barrel pick experience, where if you were someone who had a massive interest that didn't necessarily have $10,000 in a liquor license sitting around, that you could come in and get a similar experience at an accessible price with a friendly staff. And that was the genesis of that. Basically him looking at the industry and kind of figuring out what the hole was and then satisfying that demand.
No, that's very cool. I mean, there's not many opportunities to do that. Barson Bourbon Company has like a little bit of a blending class.
Sure.
That's on a smaller scale. What's it in Louisville? Barrels and billets?
Barrels and billets and barrels, something like that, I believe. Yes, sir.
Because they have that blend your own kind of thing. And then, of course, makers, if you do but you got to have way more than 10,000. But then if you want to do a private
right,
you
can do a 46
you get all
barrel
the
pick
combinations.
Yep.
It's very cool too. Very, very similar.
Absolutely.
But you can't just be, I want to do something fun and go book it. So this is very unique. And the other ones, Barson Bourbon Company is obviously a distillery, but the Barrels and Billets isn't. So this is it's like totally unique. I really can't think of anybody else.
Well, and even more interesting is that if you do the VIP experience, you have your choice of what you'd like to blend. You did the 5.5 year Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah, I did the Kentucky.
There's also a light whiskey. There's a rye station, and then an older Kentucky station.
Yeah, and the MGP bourbon barrels are available, so Indiana bourbon as well. So,
that's awesome.
Just trying to, we felt like there can be some paralysis by analysis with offering too many choices to people. But I think we've kind of settled on, you've got your 4 different mash bills to start with,
right.
2 bourbons, a rye, a light, and then of course 6 barrels in front of you. You want to choose probably between 2 and 4 of those that you really like. Decide on your blend, and then offering people customization options and choices without having it be absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's kind of
it was very
that's sort of threading the needle there, so to speak. I think so.
Well, I guess because of who your clientele, or at least many of them are, they know what light whiskey is, but most of the whiskey drinking public has absolutely no idea what a light whiskey is. So, can you talk about the choice of including that?
And I will note to you, it often turns into people's favorite thing here after they come visit. But we do a ton of education on it as well, because it's even the folks that come here oftentimes don't know about it. But X casks, higher distillation limits, 99% corn, 1% malted barley, and it typically yields a product that is more oily and viscous and full-bodied, sweeter. And my favorite part about it is it offers up fruit notes, things like tropical fruit and stuff like that you simply do not find in bourbon and do not find in rye whiskey, but does show up in light whiskey. So to me, that's exciting because it's so different, and it is offering somebody maybe something that they've never heard of before.
Yeah, I just find the whole light whiskey fascinating, as it was the brown spirits answer to vodka and things like that, and it fell flat on its face at the time, and then MGP had a whole bunch of it that sat around, and now it's everybody who tastes it loves it.
I will note it does take a little bit of extra time. It's almost always the oldest barrels we've got here. They're usually 9-10 years old before they're ready to go. Really are ready to go, and I think that's because of the use of X casks. But when it does hit, it's really nice.
Yeah, I tasted a few of them. Very good.
Yeah. And I also noticed on your website that you guys have a bottle that you can order online.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
It is essentially the J. Mattingly experience recreated as close as we could get it digitally. So there's pre-made, instead of being able to make your own blend, and we did toy around with how that might hypothetically work with mailed kits and whatnot, but licensing, reporting, frankly,
logistics,
logistics digitally, all of it at this point is prohibitive. Although I would say, in moving forward, maybe something that we might be able to take advantage of. But in any case, of course, there's pre-made batches that you get to choose from with well-described, olfactory notes and tasting, sensory analysis. And then you do get to go through, of course, then and do the customization on the packaging, which is fun. So obviously, that was an easy thing to create digitally. The program we found particularly around holidays like Father's Day, Christmas, even Valentine's Day to an extent, really is quite popular, and people are able to get customized gifts for their bourbon loving loved ones and friends and what have you. It's been awesome.
So how does shipping work? Can you ship everywhere, or
we work with a company out of Washington D.C. that helps us route the shipping.
okay?
There's 44, 45 states that we have access to. That we're at 46 states, excuse me. I think that, and including the district there. So there's a few we can't, but by and large, basically all of our shipping is routed through DC, and then of course, occasionally if we're entering into a contest, San Francisco, something like that, or we're sending samples to a licensed partner or something like that. Those come from the distillery, but everything else is routed through a shipping partner in DC.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, and we didn't, just for our listeners, we didn't mention that when you do the blending experience here, you also get to design your own bottle and label and wax. I mean, it's very cool. I mean, you really are coming up with your own thing from start to finish. That's really a nice experience for
it's definitely
people,
a unique place to visit for sure.
I appreciate that, and I guess the hardest part oftentimes is coming up with the name for it, right?
Yeah.
Because you gotta name your single barrel or name your batch.
Well, I would have named mine Ed, except there's already a wine that Total Wine sells that's named Ed.
And another question I was noticing as we were in the distiller or in the gift shop area and the tasting area, there's a lot of military
Absolutely.
presence, and so can you elaborate why? Do you guys have a special relationship?
We do. So I mean that was one of the things that really Jeff founded the company with, which is an ethos to give back as much as you can to vets and first responders. And Jeff's oldest son, Jordan, serves. My dad's actually a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. It's near and dear to us. Todd Matonich actually is someone who we just brought on. He's a Navy vet, and he's the one who's spearheading all these programs for fundraising bottles and what have you. But we work formally with, say, like the 82nd Airborne Association, Navy SEAL Foundation,
nice.
And a variety of other local charities, things like Three Rangers Foundation, Blue Skies for the Good Guys and Gals, Camp Brown Bear, and really, these organizations do a lot of different things. It might be something like physical therapy or helping combat vets rehab, be it either mentally, spiritually, or physically, helping out Gold Star families, all this stuff. And it is the main focus outside of making bourbon for the company is helping these organizations out. So it's something we're massively proud of, and we're honored that these local and national partners have trusted us to do one-off bottlings, hold events, and really raise money for them so they can help give back to these awesome heroes that we've got around us.
So the bottles that are like currently on the website now that are the military bottles, those go to help raise funds.
Absolutely. Normally around 10% of the proceeds
Sweet.
go off. So currently right now I believe there are 3 Navy SEAL Foundation bottles that are on the website, and we are always looking to release more. So more to come, and more help to give out.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we saw them. We were talking about them on the website. There were a couple. There wasn't there. I think the Airborne one is on there too.
82nd Airborne, I believe.
Another one. I think there were like 5. I mean, it's very.
Yeah.
It's we prioritize it, and it's something that no matter pretty much any time you'll get on there, and there will be 4 or 5 selections on there to choose from.
So as far as what goes into distribution, so that the 1845 6-year bourbon, that the intent of that was to be more widely distributed.
Correct.
And are there other? What else winds up in stores? Is it mainly what the stores pick or the much more smaller batch things?
It's that classic and then store picks.
Okay.
In addition to, folks coming off the street finding out about us doing their own blend, liquor stores and higher end bars love having their own blend with customized names and stuff like that too. And unlike a lot of our competitors, we'll sell it into distribution without having it be a full barrel of 250 bottles or whatever. You can do 10, 15, 20 cases, and they tend to like that a lot as well.
Wow.
So it's really one of those things where liquor store comes in. Normally we get barrel picks. If you do one with us, you're going to end up doing several, and they like being able to market and sell things that are customized to their store or customized to their steakhouse or cocktail bar or what have you. So it's certainly barrel picks is a big part of our distribution business.
Yeah, I mean being able to sell less than a full barrel is very good because barrels are a significant outlay of money that people might not want to do.
It's a lot easier to say, okay, how about 15 cases to start? And I will tell you, there have been certain times where someone will come in and say, we want 40, 50 cases of something, and we're not afraid to turn around and say, hey, let's pilot something, or maybe let's, instead of doing 40 cases of one thing, why don't you do 20 of two things? Try that out. Let's see what sells, because really what we want to do is create years-long relationships with these retailers, be they on or off premise. We want to set them up for success, and that's usually what happens.
Yes. How many states can people find you guys in right now?
We are actively selling in about, we have licenses to sell in, I believe, 16 states, and we actively sell into about 10. You'll run into us in Michigan, in Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, but we keep it pretty centralized to the Southeast and to the Midwest, and it's places where we can come in and give market support.
Yeah.
I was very impressed. I mean, I did the blending experience. I was very impressed by that. Actually, I'm a big fan of the 1845, the 6 year. I was actually drinking some of that last night.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Honestly, it was that bottle that made me want to come up and see what you guys were doing. And I'm a fan.
Yeah. So, you guys have any plans? What are your plans for the future? Any new experiences? Any new brands? You guys got to grow more, or?
I do think that we plan on really experiencing growth, particularly at the direct-to-consumer channel online.
Yeah.
We obviously want to drive increasingly more traffic here to Frankfort.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really sets us apart is that everything from the staving to the bottling, blending, everything's done by hand. So we do plan on growing, but we want to do so responsibly, and we want to do so at a clip where we can maintain quality. To us, that's got to be the North Star. So maybe we need to, build a new production facility. Maybe we need to hire X amount of production people. Maybe we need to do, but what we don't want to do is lose really that intense focus on presenting the highest quality product we can, and doing so by making it by hand. So we will grow, but responsibly, and at a manageable clip, I think is the what we're thinking.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that philosophy. Not that I'm the president of the company, but I think what it's good for bourbon brands these days is to sort of own your backyard kind of thing. The world domination approach is going to be extremely difficult these days. So your approach to focusing on the Southeast and the regional states, I mean, I think that's the way to go.
Do what you do as well as you possibly can, and try to get better at it every day. And I think that'll carry the day for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Harry. Well, we don't want to take any more of your time, but thank you so much for spending time with us and talking to us about J. Mattingly.
It's been a delight. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the really good questions, and thanks for coming in and spending some time with us today. It was an absolute pleasure to host you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Bye. Well, that about does it for this episode. Karen and I had a great time at the J. Mattingly 1845 Distillery, and hope you have enjoyed listening to this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon Podcast, your commercial-free, and therefore money-free, bourbon podcast. Be sure to join us next Monday for our Bourbon and Distillery News podcast because we have quite a bit to talk about. Also, be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends, too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 300 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can also be found on Instagram at bourbon_obsessed and on Facebook at Bourbon Obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. We'll see you next time. Cheers!